Baldur's Gate was both a memorable and impressionable title for me when it first released on the PlayStation 2 in 2001. As I played games on both PC and console, it was not my first introduction to the Baldur's Gate IP, but it was my first isometric action RPG. Was it great on the gamepad? It was even better with friends on the couch. During this golden age of couch co-op, the RPG genre was severely underrepresented. Going back to replay this recent re-release has been a fun experience, though not necessarily because the game is as good as my nostalgia would have me believe. Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance is, sadly, not sometimes masterpiece, but it's important as it served the foundation for an improved sequel, the equally enjoyable Champions of Norrath games, the Bard's Tale, and the multitude of console ARPGs that would eventually follow. Despite the Baldur's Gate IP typically having a strong focus on complex narrative, deep characters, player choice, and extensive lore, Dark Alliance offers one-dimensional characters and very few choices other than the ability to accept or reject side quests. The story unfolds across 3 acts as you investigate a conspiracy in Baldur's Gate that aims to weaken the city and its defenders. From there, you'll move outwards from the city into more distant parts of Faerun, chasing conspirators, but the basic structure of each act ultimately remains the same. Move out from a safe zone, which houses your quest givers and merchants, fight level by level through 3 to 4 themed dungeons per act, maybe completing some side objectives along the way, defeat a big boss at the end of the act, and you move on to the next. Honestly, the most memorable part of the narrative experience is the voice of John H. Mayer, who returns as the narrator. The gameplay, although perhaps simplistic by modern standards, mixes up conventional hack-and-slash action with a deceptive RPG twist. On all but the easiest difficulty settings, wading into battle, taking hits or dishing out your own, see you fall in seconds, kiting enemies into choke points, actively blocking larger foes, staying out of range as the archer or sorceress, all of these are essential skills you need to learn to survive. This is especially true when it comes to tackling bosses, or a few sub-bosses, as they can cut you down in seconds if you don't observe and react to their attack patterns. As far as the controls go, you can attack, use a selected spell or ability, activate switches, check potions for health and mana, and even jump, though this is something you'll completely forget between the rare platforming or trap-dodging sections. You get 3 character classes, the Dwarven Fighter, Human Archer, and Elven Sorceress, each with their own class-specific spells and abilities, and a specific role in combat. The Dwarf can draw aggro and cleave through enemies, the Archer is great at whittling down tough foes from afar with his elemental arrows, while the Sorceress excels at area of effect spells against mobs of basic enemies. The high difficulty and class system really hammer home the point that Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance was designed as a couch co-op experience first and foremost. Played solo, the combat can become a grind as you constantly cycle between blocking and attacking as the Dwarf, or creating space before flinging arrows and spells as the other classes. Played cooperatively, each player can best utilize their ability, making standard mobs and bosses go down much easier. Sure, it becomes easier as you increase in level, which ups your base stats and unlocks new skills, and as you acquire new gear, which consists of both RNG drops from enemies and a couple fixed items you'll get from the store or bosses, but you still need to play tactically throughout. So far so good, but the game is far from perfect and had many flaws that are still present and accounted for in its re-release. There's a complete lack of detail on what weapon prefixes do, there's poorly explained skills on the level up screen, the opening act is awful for the Archer and Sorceress with almost no good gear for them, there's enemies that wade through your attacks but excel at interrupting yours. As the Archer, you need to carry quivers of arrows. There's the labyrinthine level design that just brought back bad memories of the Thieves' Maze in Baldur's Gate 1, and then there's also some overlong gauntlets with really distant checkpoints. Another potential gripe for modern gamers is that despite the Diablo-esque appearance, the gear and leveling structure is closer in design to that of conventional RPG. Enemies never respawn, so there's no option for you to grind for gold and XP. You'll need to explore and clear out every inch of a stage if you want to gain maximum XP for new skills, or gold to buy gear, seeing as merchants stock some of the best high-level items. However, when you couple the structure with manual save points, which can appear with wildly inconsistent frequency, this methodical and formulaic approach begins to feel distinctly dated. Moving back to the good, Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance can still look surprisingly good if you temper your expectations. Upraised to 4K, running in widescreen, and flawlessly at 60 frames per second, movement and combat just felt a lot better than I remember, even if aiming spells and arrows still feels wonky at times. The environments, especially those set outdoors, with a distinctly artificial layout, but they're still packed with props and lighting effects to make them feel a little more lifelike. Oh, and the water, which is used liberally throughout the game, has reactive ripples, a feature that blew my mind at the time and still looks impressive today. There's no getting around the crude character models that appear in dialogue sequences, but the enemy models, character gear, and both the attack and death animations still look good in battle. I was also reminded of how surprisingly violent this game was, at least for the time. Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale had their ridiculous giving effect when you rolled for excess damage, but Dark Alliance allows you to hack beasts in half and watch severed limbs and heads fly off the undead. My teenage self found it exceedingly cool, and it still holds up. Ultimately, Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance is a functional re-release that is going to please fans that have been holding out for over a decade. If you love the game, and if you have a mate to join you on the couch, it can still be a lot of fun. A blast from the past that looks better on modern displays and runs better than ever. On the other hand, the high price is going to deter curious newcomers, and it's much harder to recommend to someone without nostalgic hooks.